Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Rewrite the Mother Code with me, your host, Dr. Gertrude Lyons. I am so excited to bring on my guest today, Emily Paulsen. I had the honor of being on her podcast, Curious Life of a Child-Free Woman, and she's incredible. So let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll jump in. Emily Paulsen is an award-winning entrepreneur and happily child-free woman, shining a light on the often overshadowed child-free by choice perspective. Whether interviewing innovative experts or positioning leaders to scale through her brand studio, Electric Collab, Emily's power lies in allowing people to feel seen and celebrated for who they are. She's spent years honing the ability to deeply understand and amplify others in an honest, high impact way. So I'm really looking forward to a high impact conversation with Emily. Here we go. So, as promised, I'm so excited to be here recording with you, Emily. And this is Emily Paulsen. Um, Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. So honored to be here.
Yay. Well, we had such a wonderful, and shout out to your podcast, Curious Life of a Child-Free Woman. And it's so
Yes, thank
good.
you. Thank you
It's
so
so good.
much. Thanks for
And
joining me. It was a great conversation. And, I love this kind of colliding of worlds
yeah,
between mother codes, which maybe we relate to motherhood, but there's so many different ways to think about it, which is what I love about your work.
thank you. Well, and I love how it coincides, so we get to mutually support. Even though they might seem different, they're like right there. They're not different.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're the same. Okay. Anyway, as kind of per usual, but if you're first time to my show, I will say that I love and I really honor and respect and think we all learn from and it connects us to hear other women's stories and your journey and how you got to be having a Curious Life of a Child Free podcast, all the other things that you're doing in your life, and just you and about your life. So, anywhere you want to begin, just jump in.
It's such a big question, right? When we
I
as women are asked like to talk about our lives. And I feel like we go to our job, like, okay, do I talk about my profession? Like people talk about, oh, I'm married, or I have this number of kids. There's so many sort of statistics about us. And it's almost surprisingly challenging when we try to step beyond that. And it's like, what do I want to
yeah,
say about myself? How do I want to be known? So I like that you start in this way.
sure.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess at a high level, I have always been obsessed with women. Like
Mhm.
girlfriends are my love language. I was a cheerleader from like second grade on. And as much as I liked the cheerleading part, I was always really annoyed that our job was to like root for the boys. I was like, who cares about the boys?
I
Look
know.
at us. We just made up this dance and learned it. Like we're the real
Yeah,
show here.
right.
And I just loved being friends with women. And
Mm.
then that went into being in 4-H. I was in a sewing club. I did competitive sewing.
Ah,
So
competitive sewing. That's amazing.
thank you.
I
It's a
mean,
real niche.
yeah, I grew up in a small town but somehow I never got connected to 4-H, but it's so cool. Anyway, keep going with that. I love it.
Thank you.
And I'm jealous. I'd love to be able to sew at any I took home ec, like they
Hmm.
don't
Hmm.
eighth grade, I think eighth and ninth grade, but eighth grade when that teacher introduced me to a sewing machine, I'm like, this is so cool and fun. But my mom wouldn't buy me. She kind of thought it would be like a fad, oh, I'll
Hmm.
get you the sewing machine, you'll make two things and that'll be the end of it. Like she could have been right, but still, I really
Still,
wanted a sewing machine. Anyway, okay, keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
that's okay. I'm sorry that was not fulfilled for you, but you can learn anytime. You could
Okay.
still pick it up. Sewing is very empowering. It's like you can fix anything, you can make anything. You can do things for
Yeah.
your house, you can do things for yourself. So that was a fun experience. But of course, in competitive sewing, it's mostly women. So again, I was surrounded by that. In college, I joined a
Mm.
sorority. I loved living with girls. I lived with women in my early 20s and all the things. So I just feel like I have had a personal passion or just compassion for other women and
Mm.
hearing about different perspectives and having lots of different types of friends that have different walks of lives and history and all of that. So I feel like that's kind of a benchmark of who I am. And then I've ended
Yeah.
up doing a lot of things with my career. And now, of course, with the podcast where we're highlighting women and talking about women and trying to do what I can to build other women up professionally and personally.
Hmm. Well, that's a beautiful start. And I'm going to call it a start because obviously, you've had a whole lifetime of, of doing what you're doing. But this, I've been saying this, and I just want to keep speaking into it because it's something I feel like an aspect of something I focus on in the book, coming from the fact that we all mother, and just really
Mhm,
expanding that definition of mothering, and making the distinction between mothering and motherhood, and the choices we have of,
mhm.
because we're all always mothering, but that the most important person we need to mother is ourselves. So I have this, real, like, I don't know, urge, calling to help us all, like, really discover what is self-mothering. Why haven't we been doing it? Why isn't it okay? And all of that. But what you're
Mhm.
talking about, this feeling nourished by, or this attraction to, like, be with women, I think is one, it's I'm discovering, is like the flame of self-mothering, right? Like,
Mm.
it has to start with us, and there's so much that happens from within, and valuing ourselves and our intuition. But, like, those are all the sparks that really get ignited and kept alive, and until we, like, realize how powerful that connection is, and how much the self-mothering actually gets amplified in community. And this isn't a, like, oh, well, let's just get rid of Matt. We're not
Of
talking about
course.
that, but I always feel like we have to say it because, God forbid, men's feelings are hurt. Um, so,
So fragile.
well, I know. It's like, what about us? It's like, it's been all about you for all too long. All right. Like, just let us really remember, and how we have been, and we've have bought into it, or partook in, like, the separation of women from each other,
Hmm.
and the way culture has done that in so many ways. And there's the patriarchal edge to it, or the over masculine value is, I think, specifically designed to disempower us,
Hmm.
to, because, hey, anywhere where, that thinking, that kind of dynamic wants to build its power, clearly they saw that women together was a dangerous, endeavor. And so let's just split them up, pit them against each other. And so I said a
Yes.
lot more than I was going to there, about all that, but it just, you sharing these, beautiful spaces that have meant a lot to you, about around, where you have felt empowered and nourished with other women.
Mm.
And so I guess from that, like, so in those spaces, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced everything. It doesn't mean just because you sought them out, they were always, I mean, you mentioned sorority, you mentioned some of the
Hmm.
other things. Like, some of those have their real positive sides and not so positive sides. So I'm sure that
Hmm.
just kind of being in some of the different spaces has been part of your journey, and what you've seen and experienced.
Hmm. It always breaks my heart when I meet a woman and we become friends, and at some point she expresses to me that she's always had a hard time making friends with women, or has never really felt at home in a group of other
Yeah.
women, or, really hard, mean, unfair things that have
Mm.
happened growing up or over the years, or just kind of feeling cast out by other women. To me, that's like the saddest story. I hate to hear that being someone's experience. And I also know that's not uncommon. There's a lot of stories
Yeah.
like that. I like what you just said there, bringing in the patriarchy and, not to make it all about that. But I do
No.
think one of the most successful things that the patriarchy has done is pitting us against one another. And the older I get and the more women I meet in broader and broader circles, now that I've lived different places, and you just meet more and more
Mm,
people from different walks of
sure.
life as you go on. And now with the podcast, which is centered around our curiosity, there's so much to explore there. And I'm interviewing all types of people who are building businesses and passion projects and really
Mm,
starting movements around these fascinating things. I feel like when you can just commune with somebody, like when you can have a conversation, like woman to woman, it does not take very long to strip back the differences and
mm,
see each other. And I think we do instinctually, like we want to nourish, we want to nurture, even within that conversation, if you don't know the person really well. So to me, that's almost evidence that it's like the societal structures themselves that have led us to compete or try to overpower one another, or popularity contests, like all the crap
yeah.
people talk about with women relationships. I don't think that comes from us as like an intuitive behavior. I think it's something we've learned and kind of been conditioned
Yes.
to. So that's frustrating. Like it pisses you off when you hear that, when you
Right.
understand that, but then you're like, okay, good news. That means we can undo it. Right. Like it's not like women are toxic necessarily. We just need to strip
No,
out some of this crap that we accidentally fell into.
100%. Oh, I love how you put that, and that reminder that this I don't believe this is any of our true nature, but we all were complicit in and you know s- and basically have adopted the wiring, right? It
Yes.
for you know whether it was foisted upon us or you know our own safety and security. There's so many reasons, right?
Hmm.
And that's why I always point out too, it's I mean, patriarchy is a culture. It isn't just men against women, right? It's a
Right.
masculine value dominant that we all thought maybe there's some good things about this, but and then it gets so entrenched and so generational. But as you said, the good news is like this is why we need voices like yours and the conversations, because the more we
Hmm.
hear it, the more we realize, or more. And I love the curiosity part too, because that's a big part in mine too. Like
Hmm.
let's be discerning and be curious and not just take what everybody around you is saying how you should, the choices you should make. And for me particularly on the mothering journey, and I know that that's what you're looking at, right? Because right now, even though, and I've talked about this, like the choice to be child free, I mean, wasn't even a choice at one point. It was like, if you didn't, or the only reason you didn't have children is because you couldn't, right? Like,
Hmm.
so to speak, right?
Right.
And there weren't, all the methods that we have now. Um, so it just didn't even seem like a choice so much. And now that it is, like we're new in that choice, right? So
Hmm.
I'm compassionate and tender that everybody hasn't just realized like, oh yeah, these are all really beautiful, viable choices. So I'd love to
Hmm.
hear, because that's been this beautiful focus of yours, what it, both personally for you, what was your journey in the child-free choice, and then what you see from other people that you work with or that you're around.
I love that rewire is in the title of your book, because I really
Mhm.
think what we're talking about is a rewiring of even having capacity to see these choices. And
Yeah.
it does feel incredibly fresh. It's been a big surprise to me since I have started doing this show and really outed my child free life and my choice, which I'm happy to share how I got there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but it's been really surprising. I get so much outreach from mothers who always start with the caveat, I love my kids. I love my kids. I don't regret having my kids, but I never really thought that I could go another direction. I never really
Yeah.
paused. My partner and I didn't have a conversation like, do we want to or do we not want to? We had a conversation, when should we start? What year are we going to do it? Not like,
Exactly.
not
Not
should we
like,
take it off the table?
right.
Yeah. And which, makes total sense when we look at the other things we've already talked about culturally and just gender roles and workplace roles and all of the things. It's been so ingrained that this is the path. And
Mm.
and then, as you said, if you can't have kids, right, that's what leads to like really normalizing that as the way. that's how we get guilt and shame if we can't have kids, if we don't want to
Yeah.
have kids. It's like we're automatically outside of the standard operating procedure if we try to do anything differently. And that is what I'm trying to break. Right. I think
Hmm.
if you want to have kids, you should. And I hope that you can, and whatever that looks like for you. If you don't want to have kids, I think you shouldn't. And I just want to normalize those as totally equal, parallel paths and give women the space to know themselves well enough to make that
Yes.
choice. Like that's the hard part, right? This is one
That's
of
the
those
key.
things. It is sort of binary. And of course, like you can
Hmm.
adopt later in life, there are options, but back to the conditioning and biological, like there is sort of a limit on a window we have. So, and once you have kids, you're a parent forever, no matter what happens with that child. And if you don't have kids, then you don't have kids. So I just think having some space to get to know ourselves, understand who we are, what we want is critical. And then to have access to what those lives look like. I use the word
Hmm.
representation a lot. I think when you look at movies and classic TV characters and celebrities and influencers, we don't have very many examples of happy, well adjusted, successful women who also aren't mothers in
Yeah,
culture and in most of our personal circles. I mean,
it's
obviously,
true.
whatever your relationship is with your mom, we have one. And, most people are still going down that path. So I think representing both sides equally or getting closer to that, maybe never equal,
Hmm.
but just having more examples culturally of what it can look like to go down the child free path. And what does that look like at 40, 50, 60, 70, 80? How do we feel about that choice all the way down the line? I think that
Yeah.
just gives more of a window into the true optionality we have as women, as people. And then hopefully that opens our mind a little bit to see it as a choice, not just a
Hmm.
destiny.
I love that. So so well put,
Thank
Emily.
you.
Thank you. And I have a section in my book just explicitly calling out the yes and no aspect, because for me, I was one of those people. It was a big deal that my husband and I, when we got engaged in 1989, did premarital
Mm.
counseling. That was like, oh, who did that? Right? Like that just wasn't even a
Oh,
thing.
wow.
Coaching wasn't a thing. So super proud of that. But then, early in that coaching, he asked, like, do the two of you want to have kids? And there was, it was just yes, but
Hmm.
he asked something. He said, well, when? And we were young. I got married when I was 24, so we were babies. And
Hmm.
we said, well, not right away. And he's like, well, good, because give yourselves some time and space to be married before,
Mm.
you bring that in. So there was that
Hmm.
level of consciousness, but
Hmm.
I'm kind of surprised that the question wasn't asked, just given how I know this person, and knew this
Hmm.
person, that he actually wasn't even then a little bit more like, well, that's a really big choice to make and be discerning about it. So I say that because then I had a whole journey, my mind was saying, like, yeah, when we decided to start, which was like 6 years later, my mind was saying, like, okay, let's do, this thing we said we're going to do.
Hmm.
My body was like, maybe not, so,
Mm.
but then that took me on such a deep journey and such
Mm.
a, like, it kind of like okay, if you're not going to ask the question, like, I'm going to make you ask the question. Right.
Totally. Yes.
And if we look at it that way versus, oh, something's wrong with you, like, what's wrong with you?
Mm.
It's like, what's my body telling me? And I ended up unearthing, I've shared this a number of times and in the book, that this just huge unconscious truth came out for me, which was I was terrified to be a mother. And I was
Mm.
terrified to be a mother like my mother had been. And that, like,
Mm.
whoa, it was such a deep, hidden down there realization and kind of epiphany
Mm.
that without, it just opened up, it helped me take then the next step physically, right? But still, it, and then in another, so my body kept being the one to kind of say, and then lead to, because I was curious and in the inquiry, to
Hmm. Hmm.
discover. And I was glad I didn't get pregnant right away because so many personal discoveries came out of it. But then,
Mm.
as you were saying, when you've talked to women, The caveat, of course, I love my kids, but
Hmm.
is it Emily Oster who, I hope I'm getting that right. Um, we can double check, but she wrote a piece. First, I think it was an article, but then she did a whole book on it. It's kind of academic, feminist, but it was a whole study she did about women regretting having children.
Mm,
And I'm telling you, that woman received death threats
mm,
for just putting out a truth that, like, oh my God, a woman could like have children, but then regret it. And
hmm
that the two could exist, that she could still love her children. And
mm,
if she were to do it all over again, like, and had really looked at it, she probably wouldn't have. Right. Like that's,
right.
and to let, and I let myself have that, experience of
Hmm.
like, yeah, like, oh my God, like, what could I have created? There's a lot of energy that goes into that. Anyway, um,
Yes.
it's all of that to say, like, I really encourage everyone when I hear either, like, just off the bat, and this is people who've asked me to coach them, right? Like, so I
Hmm.
have, I don't just do this with anyone off the street, but if they say like, yes, I know I've always wanted to have children, or nope, I've known I never do, like, okay, good. But like, where did that come from?
Hmm.
Let's dig deeper. Let's kind of
Hmm.
understand, not to change your mind, but to just be aware that there's always unconscious material, whether we, want to think it or not, that is navigating those decisions way more than we think, right? And most of the
Mm,
time, I'd say people that I coach stay with their original decision, but it's so much more from a discerned place that it has that much more meaning. You can
hmm
kind of weed out the reactive part of it in either of them. The following scripts and just because I'm supposed to, and all of those,
hmm
or I have enough bad experiences in the mothering realm that, like, I don't want to go near it. Like, there's those things
Right.
are out there. So anyway,
Right.
I don't know why I am talking so much. I want to hear from you.
I love it. No, it's so good. I mean, well, first I want to say I think your personal path is so profound, and I really commend you for taking that curious, open-minded approach. And as you said, not defaulting to, oh, I'm broken, or oh, this is how it has to be, or,
Yeah.
like just to sit with it and explore. And usually that's a really uncomfortable place. I mean, speaking for myself as someone who wishes I could control every outcome and everything,
I know.
it's hard to just be like, I don't know what's going to happen, especially with a decision as major as this. So I love the way you handled it. And I love the way you share it now, because I do think it opens up space for the nuance of what this journey really
Hmm.
looks like.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I think there's so many important points there. And when you
Mm.
mentioned that study on women who have regret, and how, I mean, somebody would give somebody death threats just for reporting on that, right? Not even coming out and saying she felt that herself necessarily. It just speaks to this idea we have of women and how we want
Hmm.
them to behave. And then therefore we internalize that and we feel the same way about ourselves. Like, you are the happy doting wife. You're the
Right.
happy mother who would die for her children, loves her children. Like, they're the most important thing in the world, right? Like, there's all these different, there's an endless list of these kind of archetype points that I think we have in our mind, consciously or subconsciously. And to me, all that does, like, if we just keep it as it is and we leave all of that kind of under the rug, it just makes room for women to just be quiet. Like,
Yeah.
it's too scary to say it. Am I the only one in the world who's ever had these feelings? Am I the only one who has days where I think, I sort of wish I could go back and not have these kids? Like, how scary it is to feel like not only do you have these thoughts, which societally you can imagine people would hate. Are you the
Hmm.
only woman in the world? Has nobody else ever felt this way? And if nobody else has ever said it, why would you think anybody else has ever felt this way? I think it
Right.
just goes back to that point of isolation and kind of hiding pieces of ourselves, which
Mm.
leads nowhere good. Like, there's no possibly positive outcome of that. You don't have to want to start a movement or write a book or put your feelings on a billboard, but being able to admit things to yourself and to someone else. I think that's so critical in our self development and evolution
Yeah.
just as we go through life. So, I mean, it's like the bravery it takes to kind of stand up and speak these things. And then I hope that we all have the courage to back those women up, right? And say, like,
Right.
wow, how brave, how amazing that you said that. And I get that. That makes sense. I might not be in your shoes, but I can see how you would feel that way. Like those
Mhm.
responses, I think, are so critical to continuing to build safety for us to just be honest with ourselves.
100%. I love what you're saying because it does. It gives permission, and that's what feeds itself. If nobody is, then we're just left to make something up or listen to the like,
Hmm.
see, like it must mean you're bad, or
Hmm.
like
Yeah,
what
maybe
has
I'm
been said
depressed.
about it is must be the reality. There must not be another reality. And I know, making choices outside the consensual reality, whatever they are,
Hmm.
is always risky. There's
Hmm.
always, it kind of opens you up. And I know, like, one of them for me was, you know, deciding, my husband and I, but me, because I was the one, but deciding to have
Hmm.
home birth, right?
Hmm.
And people suddenly feel free to just like let you know why that's not okay. And I think one that like really like, and this was after both of the births, was this dad. We're waiting in line to pick up our toddlers at Montessori nursery school,
Hmm.
and I don't know how we got talking about the births of our children because we both had two daughters like the same ages. And I'm like, yeah, I had home birth and a little bit about it. And he just looked at me. He's like, I just think that's the most selfish choice that someone could make. And it's like you're not like I don't
It's
know. I
jarring.
kind of knew him, but not like maybe that well. Like to
Oh,
throw that out there. Now I could process. So one, when you are making choices, and I'd love to hear how you've navigated that. When you're making any choices in this arena, because there's something that's like so core about this, us having children or
yes.
not, and how we do it, and all the choices we make around it, that that elicits like such strong reactions in people. That when we're going to make those choices, we need to know ourselves and know where we came from in that choice, and
Hmm.
not just lash back out at the person, but you know for me it's like feel the feelings and like look at like, is there any
Hmm.
truth in what he's saying? I'm not, it's not just like you're wrong, I'm right. And understand like where his wife I think had a very traumatic birth with one of them.
Mm.
So for him, like and he was probably told like, if you, who knows, like, but in his
Right.
mind, if you were at home, she and the baby, whatever, would have died.
Hmm.
Which is still a very limited unknowledge based comment, because most people don't really know, where it's safe, how it's safe, how it works in both of those
Hmm.
spaces enough to like really knowledgeably say any of that. So
Hmm.
all that again to say, I've been around women who have, consciously chosen to stay child free, and inevitably I'm around them for any period of time. Someone, oh, that they're just meeting. Oh, are you married? Do you have kids? Like
Hmm.
I would imagine that, unless you wore a sign, that's going to come up, for you. And,
Yes.
and we've talked a lot about that. Can you tell me a little bit about like how you've navigated that and what that experience is like for you?
Hmm. I think you made a really good point earlier in that, and you just what you reiterated and what you went through when you did that unconscious deep dive for yourself, being rooted in the choice, like having done the work, as people
Hmm.
say. And I don't even really know what that means, but thinking about it enough where you feel like
Yeah.
I've really examined this choice. I know why I've made this choice. I've sat with it. I've come back to it. I can, I feel the same way that I did about it, that I did 6 months ago or a year ago or whatever, and really feeling
Mm.
into the why. I think that is critical to not lose it when somebody says something completely inappropriate and
Yeah.
off the cuff, what like that gentleman said to you. And the word selfish is just, it's a really interesting one. I feel like that hits so hard for most of us. Like it's one of the worst things that we could be called,
Mm-hmm.
and people weaponize it because of
Yeah.
that. And it's particularly interesting in the no child conversation, because I think people see it both sides, right? Like I've been called selfish, of course, for deciding not to have children. I know child free people who think having children is incredibly selfish. Like, oh, you think you're so amazing, there should be more of you. Like you know, and you'd all just think that automatically. Like, did you pot, you know? So it's one of those words that it's like there's so much conviction on either side.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, of course, you know, we all get asked. It's just one of those cultural things. What do you do for a living? Are you married? Do you have kids? And then the more brash people, which is not at all unusual, when I say, no, I don't have kids, it's usually, do you mind if I ask why not? That's the next question,
Or the
which,
assumption that like, oh, you just haven't yet.
oh,
Oh,
yeah, like, oh, yes. Or you'll change your mind. You'll change your mind.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, I'm 38 now, and I still get that one. I used to get that a lot when I was younger. I decided, I mean, I felt sure that I wasn't going to have kids in my early 20s. I always said, like, never say never. I don't know how my life is, you know, maybe my brain will totally like invert
Hmm.
and I'll feel something different, but I never did. I felt the same way for a long time. So when I was younger, especially, oh, you'll change your mind. You'll change your mind. Like, you know, I didn't want to have kids till I was 24. I didn't want to have kids till I was 28. I didn't want to have kids till I was 32. You know, all these things people kind of give you that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, now that I'm a little older, or people who know my age, you know, and they kind of think I'm like a lost cause, now they just want to know why. Like, why wouldn't I have done it? And I always find that question sort of funny because nobody says, like, do you have kids? Yes, I have a 2-year-old. Do you mind if I ask why? Right? Like, nobody does it
I
that
know,
way
right? Why
ever.
did you do that? Why, like,
Why did you do
what?
that? Why did you think that was a good idea? Can you explain it to me? So that part is funny. And I mean, for
Yeah.
me, I would say most of the time I'm fine with the questions, right? And I'm happy to answer that. Like if somebody, I'll say, oh, and I'll explain. I just never really wanted to be a mother. I thought one day maybe I would change my mind. I didn't. I don't think it's right for everyone. I think there's lots of ways to find personal fulfillment. I think if
Hmm.
somebody doesn't want to be a parent, they shouldn't.
Hmm.
You know, so I can go into my whole thing, which this has happened in Uber drivers at the airport. Like always strangers, right? Who just kind of they're like desperate for you to explain how this could possibly be a choice. And I'm okay doing it, but I don't like normalizing it in culture
Yeah.
because there's so many women where it's not okay. Right.
Yeah.
And we know as women, there's so much variety and why you're in a position, a season of life. Maybe you're in a choice based on circumstances. Maybe this is like the worst thing that's happened to you. There are huge child free communities for people who are really upset that they're child free. And it's sort of a
Hmm.
mourning, grieving community to accept
Yeah.
a lifestyle that they feel like they didn't choose. They wanted to be parents. So there's just like, you know, it's so unfair to put people in this position. And I do think it happens much more with women. I ask my husband all the time, has anybody ever, like on the golf course, you know, or in a meeting, whatever, like are men walking around saying, do you have kids? Why not? And he's like, no, no one's ever asked me that. Like people know I don't have
Wow.
kids, I guess, but like nobody brings it up. You know, it's just so different. So I feel like weird about that sometimes. Like I'll get into big conversations and I'm like, I have a whole show about it. You know, it's fine. I'm up for the discussion, but I also don't want people to think it's okay to just
Hmm.
bring this up in the middle of a fitting room or a food court or whatever, when for some people it's an incredibly complex
Yeah.
or painful subject.
Yeah. So it's so vulnerable. And I think our vulnerabilities can be so exploited or um, questioned in ways, like you said, that men's choices just are not. They're just not. And,
Yeah.
one of the codes, um, that I'm looking to break is that you're only a woman if you have a child. Like that, it
Mm,
like equates to,
hmm.
you're only a family if you have a child, and you're only a woman if you have a child. And that, realization came through when I was actually working on my doctorate, and for the first time hearing women like share more deeply about no matter what that they were still in that space of they had created beautiful businesses, they had
Mm,
had major levels of success, and to
hmm.
me like mothered many things and
Mm,
people, in their lives, but still felt like, none of it really mattered, or they still weren't like a whole person, or, those were all like, we're never going to match up to,
Mm.
both like having a partner and then having a child. Like for some, it had to be both. It wasn't just the
Hmm.
child. It was like, I got to be in a relationship and I got to have a child.
Hmm.
So that's when I realized, like, oh, we got to talk about this, because when it was normalized even to a little bit to say, like, or, to give them the power of, like, what do you mean? Like, you are mothering and you are,
Mm.
and this does not, it has nothing to do with your value or the purpose you were put on this earth,
Mm.
and that really does come from the initial early, patriarchal, many religious, aspects
Hmm.
of pinning women to that purpose, in life. So that, those are pretty deep. And I have huge compassion for us as we confront those,
Mm.
because they're, it saddens me, it breaks my heart. And it, just to know, like, this didn't happen in a vacuum.
So true.
It
Yes.
absolutely didn't, right?
Mm.
So, any more that you want to say about that? Because I still have more questions.
I'm up for more. I mean, I just want to say I think the compassionate tone that you bring to this
Yeah.
is really important, because we could easily slip into us internalizing, oh, it's one more thing that we have got wrong or that we miss, or like, have we been
Mm,
taken advantage of by these religious tropes, or
yeah.
whatever, cultural tropes, and like, ugh, they put us in this position and like we should have done something about it. No, like it's not that. There's so much ingrained, and there's also, I think there are a lot of things about those traditional archetypes that a lot of women really love and really
Mhm.
aspire to and are inspired by, and including the motherhood piece. So I just appreciate the compassion you bring and the curiosity you bring around it, because I think we
Yeah,
have
that's a
to
good point.
stay in this positive state of mind, and see this as an
Hmm.
opening, like an enhancement of the way we can see the world, not anything less than that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So there's a word you use that I want to go back to and hear you share it more, because, and how this fits into everything that we're talking about, which is representation.
Mm.
Um, there's something just powerful about that. And I got it when you said it, but, why? I know it's about, but why is showcasing
Hmm.
unconventional choice is important,
Hmm.
to empower women, to consider them. Does that
Hmm.
make sense? Yeah. But just that word and what that means, and uh, you go.
Yes. Yeah. I love
Because
this topic. I love
yes.
it. And I do, I mean, I'm thrilled that we're in a place, and I try to never speak as a mother because I'm not one and I don't know what it's like firsthand to be that. I feel that we're in a space in the entrepreneur groups I'm in and women's circles and things that I'm in now, where there are a lot of wonderful resources for parents and for mothers, communities, memberships, podcasts, books,
Mm,
online, the internet, right, has brought all of these things forward. And I think that also continues to perpetuate. And I don't think this is a bad thing. This traditional life choice. We just have so many examples over the years. If you think about your favorite celebrity, your favorite character in a movie, your maybe a lead character in a book that you love, a podcast host you listen to, like most women who we admire, look up to, respect, most of them are mothers. And I know this partially from feeling it. And also when I've done
mm.
research, right, to highlight different cultural icons or thought leaders or things who are child free. We have Dolly Parton, we have Oprah, we have Chelsea Handler, some of my favorite people. So not a bad
Yeah.
list. I mean,
Right.
I would want to be any one of them. But we all kind of go to the same ones, right? Like we can list on one hand the people who come to mind. And when
Hmm.
we go back to this idea of reminding women, we do have choice and the importance of getting to know ourselves, walking the deep path like you did when you were going through your journey to have children, and uncovering these parts of ourselves and sitting with ourselves and trying
Mhm.
to separate it from a partnership, a financial goal, all the other things that kind of come into play with this decision. When we can just find a way to decide internally or try to get clarity, I guess, internally on what we want our life to look like, I think having some examples of the other choice is helpful. We have
Yeah.
so much to look at, and you can kind of
Mhm.
picture yourself as a mother. I mean, but all the way back to the time when we were little. When I was little, I was playing baby dolls, I was playing Barbies. That was like the childhood toy for me. So it's not a leap to think about what would it be like if I had a kid. You start doing that at such a young age, and I
Mhm.
don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't want to change that. I just want to like bring up another path, so they're kind of on the same playing field, and have examples of women who have decided not to be parents, not because they have a trauma, not because they have a bad relationship with their parents, not because they're fearful of something. Like it can just be a totally normal choice by a
Yes.
successful, well-adjusted woman who has a partner or doesn't or whatever. We're not these like crazy cat ladies that I think sometimes we're depicted to be. So when I say representation, that's really what I mean. Like I just want to
Mhm.
showcase women who are just like everybody else. Like it's just
Yeah.
so normal to be doing this, and it doesn't mean there's something weird or wrong with us. I think just showing more of those lifestyles can be helpful in normalizing the choice.
I love that. Yeah. The person that came to mind is actually a fictional character when you said that, which was Mary Tyler Moore, which
Hmm.
was so, I mean, when that show was on, like talk about an
Yes.
unconventional and I love that that show had such staying power and such grab.
Hmm.
It wasn't like, well, we tried, but nobody wants to watch the woman who doesn't, have the traditional family and kids, right?
So true. It's a great
Um,
example.
yeah, I do love that one. But then, for, real life people, is, it is it's it's so important. And it had me thinking about also as you were sharing that, Emily, like the biases and what you have to then deal with because you know people I've coached and just thinking about one in particular that they talk about it, both of them, both but more the woman in the couple who are child free. They both have very high powered careers. Partners in big firms and stuff, and it's like throughout their career, it's like you don't have like the ones who had kids and the women had kids. It's you have this built-in excuse like, well, I can't stay late because I got to go get my kids, or
Hmm.
somehow there's this bias that like you have so much free time
Hmm.
because you don't, or that it goes back to it, right? This reasonable, oh, you're just sitting home doing nothing because you don't
Yeah.
have those
Yeah.
children,
We have
instead of
endless time
like
and money,
the
and yeah, nothing going on. We're available. We'll
yeah,
watch
we're just,
your,
oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, we'll just, I'll be the one to stay late or, do the extra stuff because
Hmm.
so that one always just, it's so annoying. And I know it's been hurtful and annoying to them. And they worked on presencing that,
Hmm.
and educating, in the company and being able to like stand up and say like, just because I don't have children doesn't mean I, don't have anything else to do, or I don't have conflicts, or that those conflicts aren't as important. Like
Yes.
no personal conflict is as important as, tending to getting your child to soccer practice.
Right. Right.
It's
I mean,
so
it's such a
ridiculous
good,
when you think
yeah.
about it, isn't it?
It's such a good real example. I mean, I have felt that in different jobs as well. And, there's a clear line. Like everybody has to get to daycare pickup by 6, and then the rest of us are here doing the work. And of course, the solution to that isn't make the mom stay past 6. It's let's all leave this. It's like,
Yeah.
let's figure out how to get this work done in the
So we
amount of
all
time that
have
we're all
this
here together. Yeah, it's the equality
100%.
piece, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that's sometimes misunderstood about maybe about me or the show or other child-free women, that we're trying to like convince people that you shouldn't have kids, or we don't like kids, or we don't like mom
This is the
friends,
better
or
way. Yeah.
yes,
Like this is,
exactly. it is not, I say it's not about comparison, it's about
Yeah.
possibility. Like
Yes.
equality to me is the goal, just equality and understanding and perspective and approach. Do
Yep.
whatever is best for you. Those things should be treated equally. Whether you're a trad wife or you're somebody who, I don't know, never wants to spend a moment with a baby. Who cares? Like you're both
Hmm.
equal. You're both amazing women, I'm sure. And we could probably learn from one another. So yeah, yeah.
That's one of my other big, you know, platform. I don't know, platform isn't the right
Hmm.
word, but desires for sure. And visions, like until we start honoring each other's choices, and goes back to where we started at the beginning of the power of the collective, the power of women not for themselves and their own self-mothering, but then also what's possible. Because when we're judging each other's choices, that's like the biggest separator. It's just so damaging, right?
Mm,
When we don't choose to be inclusive or understand, or look at, why am I uncomfortable around my child-free friends, or vice
hmm.
versa, right?
Yeah.
I had a woman just recently at one of my book signings kind of asked that. Like, she's like, I I kind of don't know. I feel the separation now with my friends who don't have kids and the ones who do. And it was good because she was in the inquiry. She wasn't. She knew that there's something off here, but wasn't quite
Hmm.
sure what it is and who, kind of who's to blame, like what's
Hmm.
happening
Yeah.
here. And like, do I invite, like, if I do I include them in like events that involve, our children or not? And I'm like, well, one, like have a conversation and like,
Hmm.
if they're good friends, you can ask and talk about it. But don't make assumptions was kind of the big, don't assume you know them or know what they want or don't want. Because I know that, you know, people I've worked with both want to be included, but it doesn't mean they don't have feel like if they're like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm child free, but we really wanted them and we're not having them. Like
Right.
you're in different spaces so that, yeah, like they within themselves might have feelings and that's
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
and it's okay for the ones with kids to like see the woman who doesn't, like just having a heck of a good time and
Hmm.
saying her thing and doing her thing, but how we need each other. I said, because when we don't, then the value that you bring to, not to the moms and their children, because I'm telling you, like I believe that the allyship there is so important. And
Hmm.
if we want the most for our kids, like have them around, women and people who don't have kids.
Mm. Yes.
If they're
And a lot,
willing, like, for
yes.
people who want to, they're like, I don't want my own, but I love being around yours,
Hmm.
like,
Yes.
yes, have that, like, include them and not be, because you're, it's such a valuable space to have them see and have. So all of
Mm.
that, but just to bring us, tighter and closer together when we can go from judgment to curiosity as you're,
Mm.
such a big
Yes.
fan for. Um, okay. Well, I think, I hope that, again, us underlining this invites people to this curiosity and to, I want everybody to, we've talked about that you have a podcast, but I want to hear more ways that people can be in your orbit. And because you have a business that isn't related,
Hmm. Yeah.
to this aspect. And I would love for you to shine some light on those and have people understand these parts of your life and how they might want to connect with you. And then I have one last question for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Mhm.
for that. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll speak for the child for people who like to go to kids' birthday parties and kids' events. I love it. So don't not invite us just because you think we don't want to. You're so right. The
Mhm.
way you described that was so perfect. Yeah. So, I mean, of course, the podcast, it's really, even though I'm talking so much about being child free, the podcast really isn't all about being child free. It's really
Yeah.
about curiosity and, it's through the lens of a child free life. That perspective is centered on purpose, but the topics are really varied. Menopause,
Hmm.
sustainability. Actually, an episode just went out all about the Salem witch trials. Talk about unconventional women and societal bias and the patriarchy.
Yes.
That's a
Yep.
really poignant example in this kind of spooky season.
Season. Yeah.
Um, yeah, exactly. So all different types of topics, but the intention really is for us to find fulfillment on our terms. And I think when we don't have kids, or even for those who do have kids but have some white space in your life or some uncertainty, to me, learning about new things is the perfect way to chip away at that and kind
Mm.
of get clarity on maybe a new interest, a new path, a new perspective. And what you said about, if you have kids, let them be around people who don't have kids. It's so important. Like we always talk about the internet and how dangerous it is that it just serves us more of the same. Like if you click
Hmm.
on something, you just get more stuff that looks the same, and you can really end up in like an echo chamber. The same happens with our relationships in real life. And just
Yeah.
remembering that there are so many different backgrounds and points of view and opinions and ways to look at things, and welcoming that into our personal circles as well, not just the content we consume. I think that's
Hmm.
so critical just for our own development and happiness. Like it's so fun, when you meet somebody and you connect on something, especially when you're like, I would have, if I just went on assumptions, I thought we had nothing in common. I thought like,
Right.
I don't get this woman. And then now you're like, I can't wait to go have a cocktail with her or something. So there's
Yeah.
just so much room there. And I hope the podcast can be like a starting place for that. We have a Substack community now called the Curious Life Club.
Mm.
And it's really just meant to be that, right? Come in, learn, share thoughts and ideas. And I'll try to serve up conversations and experts that I think are fascinating. But really, I want it to be a two-way conversation with everyone else. And then
Yeah.
beyond that, I have a brand studio. So
Yeah.
I think I've been thinking about how these connect, because in my mind, they kind of don't. I'm always like, oh, I have two totally separate things. Then it's like,
No.
well, maybe they do go together. It's so hard to see ourselves, right?
I know.
Um, it really is. But yeah, I mean, it all goes back to really helping people feel seen. And in the brand
Yeah.
space, I've worked in that for a long time for corporate players and all the things. And now I really support women entrepreneurs primarily in building their businesses. And I think the number one gap, I mean, there's a gap in understanding just how much a brand can do for you when you think about the language and design and the
Mm.
digital presence, but it's really all about articulating the unique value that women provide, whether it's a big business, you have a big team, or it's a founder led or personal brand. There's some unique secret sauce there that makes you really special. And it's hard for us to see that ourselves. So, my goal is to really use the power of premium branding to help women see that in themselves, but help the world understand that so they can
Hmm.
make money. Wealth in the hands of women is a beautiful thing for the whole world.
Here, here. No, and hopefully, just as you said that, and that you're bridging the gap to see how much they're actually like,
I'm
connected
trying.
and
I'm trying to wrap
related.
my head around it.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, so much so because how do we reflect, our choices, who we are, what matters to
Mhm,
us, and our businesses are a function of those choices,
mhm,
and you're helping, put out the most authentic and sometimes helping. I know it was for me, like when I started and didn't have got the help to like with
mhm,
rewrite the mother code. It was like, like I knew what all was there, but I didn't know how to articulate it. And like,
mhm.
the shyness or whatever, like we're not told to, put ourselves out there in that way, like all the beliefs. So
That's right.
there's, they're definitely connected. We can
Well,
talk more
thank you for
about
that
that if you like.
reflection.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy to show that. Okay. So the last question I
Mhm.
ask my guests is, what does rewrite the mother code mean to you?
Mm. I thought about this question in advance, and I feel like I have so many things I want to say, but I want to
Mm.
be concise. I really think it's a framework to help women live with intention. And when I say intention, I don't mean something that's outward facing and wanting to show up a certain way or be perceived a certain way. I think it's giving us some breathing room to tune in and just
Mm.
detach from so many of the mother codes, the societal conditioning that we exist within largely without realizing it. I think that's a huge
Yes.
piece of this. And that's why
So
I think
much.
the title is so compelling because it's like, wait a minute, am I existing in some type of operating system that I'm not even aware of? And that awareness is the first step. And then, by going through, I think we can really understand what we want to opt into and be really okay with that, and what we want to opt out of and
Mm,
be equally okay with that as well. So I don't know if that answer makes sense, but
amazing.
that's what it
Oh
means
my
to
God,
me.
it's so good. I love, that's why I selfishly ask this question every time because, the hearing it articulated through other people, I'm like, oh, wow. Yes. That's a lens or like a way to like put it that I hadn't thought of, but no one has ever gotten the question wrong. But I appreciate you having thought about it, but also like distilling and bringing it out in a way that like has impact for you. Um,
Well,
so
thank you
thank
for
you.
doing the work. Thank you for
Thank you.
creating it.
Yeah. And thank you for following, that space, that intuitive spark that this is a conversation away because when you describe the the bigger perspective of what your podcast is about, what that aspect is about, it's really back to the self mothering. It's what do we desire, and where is culture telling us we're not allowed to desire that,
Hmm.
and that it's okay as women to just make choices for our pleasure
Mm,
and for no
beautiful.
other reason, right? We don't have to explain it. We don't have to have evidence for it. We don't have to whatever.
Mm.
This is what gives me pleasure. This is what
Mm.
I yearn deeply for. So it keeps bringing me back. You brought me back to that. So thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for being on the show. And I can't wait for us to, continue moving forward in our worlds and having them continue to intersect.
Me too. This has been a pleasure. I'm a fan of yours forever. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks. I'm so grateful for this conversation with Emily. And like I said at the end, I feel like she brings such a thoughtful, solid, but also this is important and, passion to rewriting the codes on choosing a child free life. And no matter where along your lifetime that choice, you make that choice. Um, I have found, working with women that letting yourself at least for a period of time, if that's like, you're curious, you're child free curious, that you at some point, I think sometimes what's hard is when we stay in ambivalence, and that's what's so beautiful about the work Emily's doing. Is it's like she was clear, she was clear, but then really explored it, discerned, and lets herself revisit it. Um, but you make a choice, right? And I think sometimes in this realm, that seems like a really hard thing to do because if you're, especially if you're someone who you thought you wanted to have kids and the choice you can't, so to speak, or the choices, what you'd have to do to make that happen aren't choices that align with you. Um, to draw a line in the sand and say we've chosen this path, this is our path, because when we do that then we can really open ourselves to the child-free life or the child life, the deciding to have children, when it's a really discerned choice and it's like, okay, I'm here, we're going to embark on it, this is my life, my world. It opens the door to so much more expansion and creativity in that process. So that's encouragement number one. And then I also have so been in this of late too, of underlining that we can make choices that are for ourselves, that don't have to have a so that, or I'm doing this to make myself, like, because the more I take care of myself, the more that's of me that's there for others, which actually is true. But we don't have to have that as the reason. The reason can simply be, I want it. I desire it. It's something that is important to me, and that's all. Just you know, stop there and give it to yourself. And if that's really hard, I'm here for you. If that it sends you into a panic to even think about doing that, I'm here for you. Please reach out. I always love hearing from you, and I appreciate you so so much for tuning in and supporting the show. So thank you, and until next time.